I swiped a milky and handsome younger brother on the internet, which was a marriage video sent by his mother, with the text, "I want to be a mother-in-law." I was whole excited, looking at the rows of greetings to my mother-in-law in the comment area. I also shouted a few words along with the trend. As a result, the next day, the tutor pushed her son's weshit message to me, and affectionately shouted, "Daughter-in-law, your husband is here." When I woke up, my account exploded. There were a lot of private messages, reminding me that I was flopped by my mother-in-law. Here's the thing, last night before going to bed, I swiped a younger brother, who grew up in my aesthetics. It was a marriage video sent by his mother, with the text, "I want to be a mother-in-law." I held my phone and looked at it several times, and I couldn't help myself. As soon as my brain is hot, I have followed the trend and left a comment, "Mother-in-law, when do you have time? I'll come to see you." Mother-in-law, I want a weshit of my husband. I'll be good to him. Mother-in-law, I can get married right away, and hold 2 in 3 years. After a night, 3 comments were topped to the top, and each of my comments was followed by my mother-in-law's reply, "Whenever you have time, just come, arrange it right away, haha." In addition to these 3 replies, my mother-in-law also sent me a private message, asking me to add her weshit. I happily twisted into maggots on the bed and screamed. My roommate Fred asked me why I suddenly went crazy. I put my phone in front of her eyes and shouted excitedly, "My husband is gone, and my mother-in-law is very nice." Fred touched her chin and thought, "No, why do I see this man's eyebrows and eyes so familiar? Maybe that's what handsome guys have in common." I snatched my phone back, happily copied my mother-in-law's weshit ID, and searched for it. The results came out. Is my tutor's page? Daughter-in-law. Morning. A smile was sent on the other side, and a weshit business card was thrown over. "This is your husband's weshit." I was stunned for a few seconds, and finally reacted that I signed up online to be someone's daughter-in-law and ended up running into my mentor. "Mother-in-law, I don't give up trying again." There was a voice directly from the other side, which was a hearty laugh and ying, "It's so nice." Confirmed. I wanted to cry without tears. "I'll just say it's so familiar. It's your mentor's son." Fred laughed. "Heaven is a godsend. Hurry up." I gave her a resentful look. "Blaspheming my guru's son. I'm afraid I'll not finish my job." "It's okay. The mentor allowed you to blaspheme." Fred gave an affirmative look. I exhaled and continued chatting. "Did you add your husband's weshit? Belinda Hurst, you're not going to go back, are you? I tell you, the whole country is watching." Looking at these outputs of the mentor, I replied stubbornly, "Add it immediately. No regrets. In fact, I'm not unwilling." Anyway, the respected mentor in my eyes has become a kind mother-in-law, and I can't adapt to it for the time being. With a ding, weshit passed the friend application. At the same time, the tutor sent another laughing emoji. "I've already packed your husband up, and waited for you to eat outside your dormitory." I quickly got out of bed and went to the balcony to take a look. And sure enough, I saw a boy in a white shirt and black pants standing downstairs next to the flower bed. I gasped, and my eyes widened. This is the speed of a rocket, right? After quickly cleaning up, I hurried downstairs, leaned on the wall and quietly peeked out, taking in the boy's full posture. He stood alone beside the flower bed, standing as tall as an aspen tree, cool and comfortable in his own right. According to the tutor, he should have waited for almost an hour, but he looked at it without the slightest impatience, with his hands in his pockets, and he didn't even play with his mobile phone. Bonus points. He blew on the bangs and carefully dialed out the shape. I cheered myself up, such a boy. After this village, there will be no such shop, regardless of whether he is the mentor's cub or not. Rush and be done. So I took a deep breath, and walked out with my head held high. And the closer I got closer, I discovered a secret. The boy's ears are red, and he should be nervous. which is super cute. The next second, he just turned around and made eye contact with me. Damn, family, people are gone. Imagine what it feels like to see someone in the video last night, or even coveted in your dreams, to appear in front of you alive, with a pair of eyes only looking at you. Anyway, I think my heartbeat is a little loud to my ears. Omar Forster, the boy spoke. My name, Belinda Hurst. After I finished the introduction, I quickly apologized. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were waiting for me. It's been hard for you to stand for so long. He smiled and shook his head, saying, I know you. You're my mother's graduate student, and she talks about you a lot. As he spoke, he took something out of his pocket and held it up in front of me with a fist. Under my puzzled eyes, Omar Forster's slender hand spread out, revealing the 2 chocolates inside. A small gift. I took the chocolate, tore open the wrapper, and ate it in my mouth, feeling the chocolate melt in my mouth. Oh my God, this man is damn sweet. On the way to the cafeteria, I learned that he was a third-year student in the physics department of our university. How come I've never seen you? I regret in my heart. If I had known that there was such a person in this school, I would have to wait until now. I've seen it. Omar Forster sighed quietly. It's just that you've never seen me. A fluttering word was quickly sent away by the breeze. Heh, I don't seem to understand it. I don't seem to understand it. He didn't intend to explain, but changed the topic and talked to me about something else. I also put the little episode behind me. After all, I may have misheard. With his appearance, how can I see the truth that I will forget? I absolutely believe in my memory of beauty. When eating, I want to behave well, deliberately get up as a lady, and eat in small bites. Omar Forster saw my contrived gesture, his eyebrows slightly raised, and his eyes were surprised and smiling. Do you have time this afternoon? What? Meet my parents. Poof. I quickly pulled out a tissue to wipe my mouth, but luckily I didn't squirt the rice. Is this so fast? He curled his eyes. It's okay. Aren't you called your mother-in-law? Ahem, ahem. I coughed violently. My face flushed, and I didn't know whether I was ashamed or choked. But I'm not yet 22 years old, and I'll have to wait a little longer to get married, and next year will be fine. The 3-year plan also needs to be delayed, and we can't drive without a license. At this time, a few classmates passed by, and when they heard this conversation, they couldn't help but throw several glances at us. It's so ashamed. The bold words on the internet are not only seen and ridiculed by the main owner, but also frequently watched by strange classmates, and the real society dies. You saw it all. I stammered. Well, I saw you calling me husband. When Omar Forster said this, it was as if he were just saying that the weather was nice and uneventful, but I could see a bit of pride in his slightly narrowed eyes. Teacher's reply. She did it herself. He quietly hooked the corners of his mouth, but unfortunately he didn't hide it smartly. I rolled my eyes and asked, then why are you so cooperative? Omar Forster leaned forward suddenly, his chin folded with his hands folded, and his eyes looked at me earnestly. Didn't you say you'd be nice to me? I believe in you. I admit that I was bewitched at this moment. The boy in front of him was too dazzling, especially those peach blossom eyes. The eye waves are full of your shadow, and it is hard not to be moved. But I shook my head, and quickly came to my senses. The period of time that came out is not long, but it is not short. If I can't see anything, then my EQ is too low. This guy has been interested in me for a long time, otherwise he would be a male sea king. But the mentor never cheats himself, especially when he is so active in matching the two of us. Estimate his careful thinking. It has long been clearly grasped by the tutor. Thinking about this, I deliberately said, in this case, there are a lot of common areas, and I follow the trend. The implication is that there are too many things to do. Hearing this, Omar Forster was visibly unhappy, and the corners of his mouth were straightened. looking aggrieved. I rejoiced in my heart. Sure enough, they like me. It's really cute to death. Then you, the boy in front of him pondered and said, obviously still looking worried, but he didn't know why. And the next second he changed his appearance. His eyebrows were raised, and his eyes brought back the confidence that he had won the game. Are you dissatisfied with me? Hiss. I gasped and was pinched. I'm so satisfied. I can't wait to kill him. Ahem. Omar Forster clenched his hands into fists and coughed uncomfortably, the tips of his ears quietly reddening again. His eyes twinkled with shame. Again. You can't drive without a license. Heh. I'm a little confused. Why did you suddenly turn to this? Omar Forster blinked, the panic and weakness in his eyes, but he only pointed to the corner of his eye. Your eyes reveal the color you're thinking about right now. Color? Yellow. My eyes are so hot that I feel like I'm a piece of meat to be eaten by you. There was amusement and pleasure in his tone. I smiled professionally. Then I'll look at the others. With that, I picked up the plate and got up, intending to put it away. It's strange. Obviously I'm not angry, but I can't help but put on this look. After walking a few steps, I suddenly realized, Mom, this can't be just falling in love, is it? He took out a hand and patted his right cheek. The tentacles were warm and hot. Omar Forster, who was behind me, followed and walked up to me. His clear voice rang in his ears. It's better to look at me. Damn, this man is so good. Fred yelled at me in the dorm room, and I nodded frantically in agreement. What do you think I'm wearing this afternoon? I started to get nervous when Omar Forster reminded me a few times, when he was gone. So nervous. Fred covered her mouth and teased. Your sloppy appearance has been seen by your mentor. Now you know how to save your image. Isn't it a different identity? I gave her a disgusted look. The sour smell of love. Fred sighed. Her eyes lit up. No, I can't be sour alone. Can I post a video if I want? She tugged at the corner of my coat. I've got you guys pictured. No. I was curious, and leaned over to make a fuss about it. The first is a top-down view. In the frame, Omar Forster reaches out to me, and the shadow cast by his tall figure just envelops me. The second is in the narrow aisle of the cafeteria, where Omar Forster and I stand side by side with a plate, just as I walk with the corners of my skirt fluttering, and brushing Omar Forster's pants. I liked it so much that I watched it a few times, and suddenly remembered that I had taken it too, so I quickly flipped out the photo on my mobile phone to show it. One was when I pinched the rest of the chocolate, and accidentally photographed a piece of Omar Forster's coat. The other is 2 pairs of legs, under the table when sitting together to eat, but mine was obviously taken secretly. Good sister, it's called a coincidence. Fred laughed. Woo woo, I like these 2 of you so much. Can you send them to me? I looked up, folded my hands, and activated the star eye skill. Absolutely. Fred happily sent it to me, so I can send a video. I thought for a few seconds. Shall I ask Omar Forster? There's him up there. After all, finding the chat interface that was still hot, I edited a message and sent it out. Is this an official announcement? The reply was quick. Count. Why not? Netizens all over the country are watching it. Fred was more excited than I was when she saw it, urging me to reply quickly. Count. After sending it, a message popped up on the opposite side. Gladly. Around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Omar Forster rode his bicycle downstairs. I started to ask Fred anxiously. Look at me. How are you? Fred amused. All right. Super beautiful. Let's hold on. I can't let my brother see that my sister is nervous. You're right. I nodded, took a deep breath and smiled, and headed out the door. The moment Omar Forster saw me, I could clearly feel his eyes light up. It's beautiful, he praised. Thank you. My parents live in school today, so let's go to the family area. He patted the back of the bike. Try it. The moment I got into the back seat of my bike, I looked upstairs and saw that Fred was giving me a fist to cheer me on. Are you seated? Omar Forster asked. All right, you're not going to catch me. I'm holding the edge of your stool. I snickered when I saw Omar Forster pause for a few seconds, before shaking his head and starting to ride. The wind blew the white shirt of the boy, and the corner of the skirt of the girl in an instant. The bicycle carried me through the school crowd under the evening sky. The two men didn't speak all the way. On the contrary, I can occasionally hear a few words from passers-by. My heart suddenly calmed down and I began to experience a little comfort. Later, the boy's white shirt attracted my full attention. I quietly grasped the corner of his wind-blown shirt. The strange mind made me make a little wrinkle, and ruin the smoothness he had deliberately scalded. Then I was satisfied. It's coming. It's coming. The tutor's happy voice came from inside the door. The next moment, the door opened. Hello, teacher. I watched as the mentor and her husband bowed obediently. It's a beautiful day. The tutor patted me on the shoulder and quipped. I suddenly remembered that the last time, my tutor came to my dormitory to ask me for information because of the project. I was unkempt and wearing pajamas, and was disgusted by my tutor. I scratched my head and said honestly, doesn't that show that I take it seriously? The tutor happily let me in, and the four of them sat down and said something, and she sent the two men to the kitchen. I'll tell you a secret. The tutor glanced at the kitchen and whispered in my ear. Under my puzzled gaze, the tutor half covered his mouth with one hand and lowered his voice even more. After I posted that video, I received a lot of comments and told Omar Forster to listen to it, and he didn't react at all. Later, I saw a familiar ID, clicked on the opening picture, and found that it was your photo, and the homepage was still tagged with our school, and I immediately confirmed that it was you. I blurted out, gee, I didn't expect Belinda Hurst to take a fancy to you. Then this stinky boy moved his ears, and asked me which Belinda Hurst I was. I said, my graduate student, Belinda Hurst. You know how. He came to see it right away. I felt something was wrong, and I pretended to be sorry and said, if you weren't going to fall in love, I'd have sent you to the door. Sorry. Next time I'll introduce Belinda Hurst to a good one, and tell her to quickly empathize, and don't hang on your crooked neck tree. At this point, the corners of the mentor's mouth were almost reaching his temples. Hearing this, the stinky boy awkwardly stopped me. Don't. You can talk. I imagined the scene and laughed out loud. Stinky boy, I guess I've had you in my heart for a long time, even if I guessed. My mentor's acknowledgement was much more powerful than my own guess. It was as if I had a sweet candy in my mouth, and the more I tasted it, the sweeter it became. At dinner, although there were only 4 people, the dishes were particularly sumptuous. The tutor also coaxed me to try my future husband's craft quickly. Omar Forster sat on the sidelines, blushing at the amusement. I couldn't get much better, so I had to turn my mind to eating. I really want to eat sweet and sour pork ribs, but it's a pity that it's too far. I sighed inwardly. Unexpectedly, a pair of chopsticks put a piece of pork ribs in my bowl. I looked up and it was Omar Forster, and he asked, do you want more? Glancing at my mentor and her husband in embarrassment, I nodded. Then a small mountain of sweet and sour pork ribs was piled up in the bowl. Won't I be very unsightly when I eat pig's trotters at this time? I stared at the juicy pig's feet in front of me, thinking, eat as much as you want. Omar Forster took another pair of chopsticks and put it in my bowl. I froze and looked at him. At this time, the mentors were already overjoyed. Omar Forster is like a different person, and he is quite good at taking care of people. I smiled shyly, but began to mutter, how Omar Forster knows what I want to eat. It can't be the roundworm in my stomach, right? So I glanced at him again, and saw him casually wiping his hand over the corner of his eye and scratching his sideburns. Suddenly I remembered that in the morning, Omar Forster said that my eyes were exposed too much. Is this the case again? No way. Is my mind so easy to guess? When we came back, we didn't ride our bikes, so we went for a walk after dinner. The wind at night is still a little cool. I was wearing a long skirt with half sleeves, and I suddenly felt a little envious when I watched my classmates around me add coats. At that time, I was in a hurry, and I forgot about the large temperature difference between day and night, so I had to bring a coat. Now I can only endure it with tears, and I have to pretend to be beautiful and generous. I actually got goosebumps on my arms for a few rounds, as I complained to myself. Omar Forster put his coat on top of me. Everyone else has a coat to wear, he said. The coldness made me wrap myself tightly and honestly, feeling the boy's residual body temperature and body fragrance, and sighing in satisfaction. You know a lot, I quipped. Omar Forster smiled and didn't deny it. I suddenly remembered my mentor's words before leaving, and I hesitated. He didn't even confess to you. It's not going to work. It's a necessary step in love. Thinking about it this way, we are indeed together in a daze, and it is not formal at all. I glanced quietly at Omar Forster, who, I don't mean to confess, he understands it so well, but he doesn't confess. He doesn't want to play with me, right? In my struggle, Omar Forster paused. I was inexplicably nervous for a moment, looking up into his eyes in the dim light of the streetlight. What's wrong, Belinda Hurst? He took a deep breath and half bent over to look at me, his dark eyes focused on it. Can you be my girlfriend? I like you. And then, Fred asked. Then, he and I hugged him on the street as if no one was around. He carefully wrapped his arms around me and said apologetically, I was careless, and I almost didn't give you the sense of ritual you deserve. Damn, this man is not simple. I've noticed it too, and I seem to understand that something is abnormal. I nodded in agreement. I asked the mentor about Omar Forster, who had no previous relationship experience. Why did he take care of the girl's mind everywhere and seemed so experienced? Is he gifted? I pondered for a moment. Not quite really. Fred, you look me in the eye. Do you know what I'm thinking? I took Freda's shoulders and looked her in the eye. Fred frowned, unable to understand. I'm not a roundworm in your belly. How do I know what you're thinking? Yes, I muttered. Then why does Omar Forster know what's going on in my mind? Gee, maybe this is the legendary soul spirit, but when I think about it repeatedly, I always feel that something is wrong. Relax, you're probably thinking too much. Fred shook my shoulder and said, when you have a good relationship, you should put your heart and soul into it. In the process of getting along, it is normal to understand each other's thoughts more and more. And you've only been with him for a few days, so there's more of a coincidence, right? Maybe I'm making a big fuss. I spread my hands and admit it, but having said that, the nature of a woman is that as long as there is a little doubt, she will stay in the bottom of her heart, waiting for the right opportunity to sprout and then grow into a towering tree. In the days we were together, Omar Forster was the boyfriend who was in my heart everywhere. My suspicions grew stronger and heavier, because his kindness to me was too coincidental. Is there really anyone who can respond to another person's thoughts in such a timely manner? The more beautiful things are, the more they should arouse caution. It's a pity that I don't have a reasonable reason to guess and there is no definite evidence to confirm it. Until Omar Forster and I were reading books in the library, I accidentally caught a glimpse of a pink booklet, hidden in the pile of heavy physics books he was stacking, which read, Love Cheats, How to Understand a Girl's Mind. While Omar Forster was on the toilet, my curiosity made me quietly pull out and look through it for a while. His delicate and powerful handwriting densely spread across the page. There are key points mentioned in the book, and there are also summaries made based on their own practical experience. Look at some of the details and reflections he wrote about our relationship. It dawned on me that the relationship was going so well that I ignored the small frictions. We have also had conflicts, and we have had cold wars, but in the end they were dealt with quickly, and they seemed so insignificant. This discovery instantly annihilated the seed of doubt for me. Omar Forster is a flexible and learning person himself, so it's no surprise that he can quickly get started in love. This discovery not only dispelled my suspicions, but also made me appreciate our relationship even more. Omar Forster, I promise I'll be good to you. I then held Omar Forster's arm, and staggered to tell my thoughts. Omar Forster exhaled and nodded the same words he had said when we first met. Well, I believe you. The mentor was very happy with our rapidly developing feelings, and even treated me kindly. When I got along with her, I didn't have the same apprehension as before, but became more relaxed and friendly. On this day, after the project team meeting, I realized that something had been left in the conference room. On the way back, I heard a few teammates talking inside at the door, mentioning my name. The sensitivity to her own name made me pause, and Fred stayed at the door. What the hell is Belinda Hurst capable of? The mentor would have introduced her son to her. I feel that the mentor is much better to her than to us, which is somewhat unfair. She talks and laughs with her mentor every day, just to show off on purpose. Right, I think. Before I could finish speaking, I was interrupted by the door I pushed open. I didn't allow myself to hear the worst words, and I didn't let them say the worst things. When I got my things back and turned to go out, I thought about it and turned around and came back. I don't have any skills. I just take the initiative to fight for it. If you had nominated yourself before me, the mentor might have introduced you to you. In addition, my mentor and I have always been serious and rigorous in our business, and we are no different from before. Think clearly before you speak. Don't blacken your mentor. Everything else is private. If you insist that I am showing off, then it doesn't matter. With their embarrassed looks, I turned away, only to find that I didn't know when Omar Forster had arrived. Why are you here? I've been waiting a little longer. I've come up to you. I nodded, ready to take him along. Omar Forster refused, and he turned to me and said something to them. Belinda Hurst is wrong in saying that my mom pulled the strings because I had a crush on her first, not because she took the initiative. So when did you have a crush on me? When I came out. I grabbed Omar Forster and asked this question that had been bothering me for a long time. He finally admitted it to himself. How could I let go of the opportunity to solve the puzzle? It's just that I didn't expect Omar Forster to be very tight-mouthed and refuse to reveal half a word. I hung my head in frustration. I'm so curious. Curious about what? Anyway, I liked you before and now. And as for the future, I guess it will be. Why is it estimated and not affirmed in the future? I managed to get led astray, and began to grasp a certain point to tease him. Are you going to change your mind? Not really, Omar Forster replied to me amusefully, urging me to hurry up and eat. It's going to be cold. You eat it. Didn't you say you had to rush the project? Oh, being with my mentor's son didn't ease my pain of being dominated by the project in the slightest. It's so hard. I chewed on my food, and put on a sad and angry expression. I've been working on projects since morning till night, and the movement has never stopped. I feel like Fred is going to kick me out if I keep going like this. Omar Forster frowned at my description, looking more worried than I was. Suddenly, my heart softened, and I explained dryly, "Haha, it's just a complaint. Don't take it to heart. My parents usually live off campus, and the family area is empty, so you can move in." No sooner had I finished speaking, than had Omar Forster finished. "I'll work with you and help you do some, so you won't have to work so hard." "What? You want to live with me?" I blurted out. Everyone else looked at us, in astonishment by the voice. Omar Forster coughed unnaturally, his face flushing slightly. "I'm getting down to business. What are you thinking?" "Well, I misunderstood. It's all because my brother is very reserved. It's been so long, and I haven't even succeeded once, which makes me extremely greedy. No, I have to look for a chance, at least touch it, somehow." Omar Forster became more and more restless, feeling like a steamed shrimp. "What's wrong with you?" "It's too hot." "Well, it's too hot." He wiped the sweat from his forehead. That evening, Omar Forster helped me move some simple luggage into my tutor's apartment at school. When I went in, I was still a little flattered. Does the mentor know? She knows. Omar Forster nodded. You can be your own home. I rolled my eyes and asked, what about you? I'll go back to my dorm. Omar Forster looked at his watch. It's late. It's not safe for men and women to stay together. What's not safe? He's clearly on the lookout for me. I glared at him hatefully, expressing my strong displeasure. Omar Forster chuckled and touched my head. Well, I'll come back tomorrow to help you sort out the materials. Good guys. Who can withstand this? So I could only send him away in pain and joy. When the door was closed, I realized if I was too shameless. It's obviously a sister and brother love. I should take care of him. Why is it always me who is pinched? Deeply introspection and introspection. You can't lose the face of the majority of sisters. Wait for next time. Next time I'm going to get my way. When I came out of the shower, I was holding a hair dryer and blowing my hair. And halfway through the blow, the power suddenly went out. The whole room was plunged into darkness. I didn't wear glasses and wasn't familiar with the terrain. So when I was fumbling with my phone, I accidentally bumped into the leg of the table, stumbled and almost fell. When I successfully got the phone, I found that it showed that the battery was urgent. I cursed. It's really unlucky to open the door for the unlucky to be unlucky, and the unlucky to get home. Let's go to bed early tonight. Omar Forster's message from a few minutes ago is displayed on my Weshit page that I haven't closed yet. There's a power outage in the house. Before I could issue the second one, the phone went on strike. As soon as I threw the phone away, I regretted that I didn't make a repair call first. Sure enough, men only affect the speed at which I draw my knife. With a sigh, I was going to go to sleep, but in a dark house, it really shouldn't be too difficult to get from the living room to the bedroom. In particular, I was not familiar with the route, so I could only move slowly little by little. In the darkness, any little sound is infinitely amplified, and a person is in it, and the whole heart trembles slightly. When I successfully touched the bedroom and covered the quilt, there was suddenly some movement outside. I froze instantly. Some bad thoughts crossed my mind, and I quickly got out of bed and locked the bedroom door. Leaning against the bedroom door and taking a deep breath, I steadied myself and went to get the small glass lamp on the bedside table. Holding my breath, I seemed to hear the sound of the door being opened, and a little rude, making a big noise. My hand gripping the lamp clenched tightly, nervous to the extreme. It was only at the sound of the familiar Belinda Hurst that I suddenly relaxed. Omar Forster. I put down the lamp and opened the door. Tears in my eyes. It's good that it's you. Scaring you. Omar Forster ran up to me and put his arm around me. I leaned into his arms, like a wronged child, whimpering and exaggerating my panic and fear. Belinda Hurst is great and very vigilant. Omar Forster touched my head. I whispered in response and asked him, what are you doing here? I don't reply to your Weshit, and I don't answer my calls. I'm afraid you're in trouble. I rubbed my cheek against Omar Forster's chest, felt the soft touch of his pajamas, and realized that he had come out without changing his clothes. Did you make a repair call? It's not time yet. Then I'll take a look. Omar Forster calmed me down and turned to go out. I grabbed his hand and refused to let go. I'm scared alone. Then you're following me. Okay. Along the way, Omar Forster led me to the electrical box, and then he shoved me his phone. Give me a light. After Omar Forster finished, he added, if you're bored, you can play with my phone. This is the first time I've gotten my hands on Omar Forster's phone. I flipped through the lights while looking curiously. The whole interface looked clean and tidy, and I checked his phone like a detective, and found no trace of it. Okay, satisfied. Then I turned on Douyin, turned down the volume, and planned to watch a video, but I didn't expect that there were several in a row that I was not interested in. I clicked on Omar Forster's video collection, again to find out what he likes to watch in general. As a result, the only collection he has is the Fred video. With nostalgia in mind, I clicked on the video to rewatch it, and found that Omar Forster had praised all the netizens, who praised us for being a good match. Omar Forster. Hey. Omar Forster turned to look at me, and it was obvious that he was too focused to know what I was doing. I saw that you praised all the netizens, who praised us for being a good match. Omar Forster nodded, not embarrassed at being caught. They're quite discerning. I laughed out loud and said, the pictures I posted back then were all taken by Fred and me. You can shoot openly now. I turned on my camera, pointed it at him, and said, like this. Omar Forster took 2 steps back, leaned over to me, clicked the reverse camera again, and pressed the shutter, like this. The background of the picture that came out was dark, but the flash did not illuminate both of our faces a little. I liked it very much, clicked save, and sent it to myself with his wish it. I looked at the time, 10:40 o'clock. I was secretly happy in my heart, but I regretted it in my mouth. Omar Forster, the door is closed. Isn't this the opportunity? Then I won't be going back tonight. Omar Forster began to work diligently again. I can graciously divide the bed in half of you. I poked him in the back. Omar Forster choked on my words, and at the same time, a call came. I happily threw myself at him and complimented him. You're so good. You can fix electricity. You're really homely. As I spoke, I hooked one hand around his neck and forced him to bow his head, giving him a loud kiss on the lips in reward, and the other sneaking into his abdomen. He was wearing loose pajamas, which was really convenient for me. I'm going to have to touch it once. When I touched the warm skin, and felt the smooth and hard touch, my fingertips trembled slightly. Omar Forster reacted, grabbed my messy hand, took a few deep breaths, and whispered to me, there's surveillance at home. With a bang, I quickly pushed him away, and pretended to go back to the bedroom. I tell you, don't think about taking advantage of my sister. Finally, I waited for my project to say goodbye to the busy period. Omar Forster himself is busy again, and he has competitions to prepare. Ah, he sighed. It's been a long time since we've been on a date. Omar Forster looked at me amusedly. Haven't we been dating? Okay, barely. Library, go. Hearing this, I drooped my head. Omar Forster rubbed my head and said thoughtfully, then I'll go by myself. You can rest. Yay. The sun was shining brightly, and I waved goodbye to him. A day later, I put my phone down again, and honestly went to the library to find Omar Forster. Omar Forster was a little surprised to see me out of nowhere. He handed over a note that said, why are you here? If you don't study today, you'll be garbage tomorrow. Omar Forster smiled and put away the note. Towards noon, I remembered that a delivery had arrived, but I didn't have my phone with me, so I borrowed my Omar Forster phone, and asked Fred to help me see the delivery number. After that, I habitually cleaned up the open apps on my screen. I accidentally discovered a big secret. The sticky notes that Omar Forster had previously opened have not been cleaned up, and remain on the edit page. The latest line says strawberry milkshake, which I suddenly wanted to eat when I caught a glimpse of the strawberries on the table across from the young lady in the library today. I scrolled ahead and there were all sorts of little things I wanted, most of which I hadn't told Omar Forster. He always gave me a great gift, and I thought he had asked Fred. Now I see that the strawberry milkshake I wanted to eat not long ago was recorded by him. A bold idea sprung up in my mind. Omar Forster, are you hiding a secret from me? I'm a person who can't hold back my thoughts, and I can't bear it. On the way back to my dorm room from the library that night, I asked. Omar Forster paused, turned to face me. You got it, don't you know that I know? If he could really hear me, how could he not know if I knew it? I know. Omar Forster sighed. I've been listening to your nonsense for the day. I'm almost going to be recruited. You can really hear it. My eyes widened and I exclaimed, HMM, is this the legendary mind reading? I guess so. Can you hear the voices of others? Omar Forster honestly shook his head. No. Hearing this answer, I felt like I had discovered a new continent. So this is a mind-reading technique just for me. Yes, it's amazing. Just for me. It's so fun. Omar Forster flicked a finger on my head and scolded, "Love brain." Seeing Omar Forster's nervous and apprehensive expression, I giggled at him. What's wrong with the love brain? Aren't you afraid? He withdrew his hand, his dark eyes fixed on me, as if to take in all the subtle expressions of mine. Why should I be afraid? I can hear all of your thoughts, including some secrets you may not want to be discovered. Omar Forster rolled his Adam's apple for a while, and continued with difficulty. This proves you will no longer have privacy. And when did you find out you have mind reading? There was a momentary blankness on Omar Forster's face, as if he didn't know why I had suddenly diverted the subject. The first time I saw you. That's right, you didn't mean to. I remembered that Omar Forster had tried desperately to cover it up, because he was afraid that I would be timid, although it is very insecure to expose everything you have to another person. But if that person were you, I don't think I would be afraid. Suddenly being able to hear another person's voice, or even being disturbed by it all the time, is a disaster. If given a choice, Omar Forster wouldn't want to be the eavesdropper either. Omar Forster grabbed my hand and pulled me into his arms. I could clearly hear the sound of his heart pounding, throbbing, intense and powerful. Thank you, Belinda Hurst. His head was buried in my neck and shoulder, and his voice was a few degrees hoarse. Thank me for what? I have to thank you for your mind reading. I deliberately joked. I said that the love experience is so good. It turns out that you can hear my heart and prescribe the right medicine. That's right. Omar Forster doesn't hurt me. He uses mind reading all the time. He does it to treat me better. So I'm not afraid. Well, it's better for you to use it, and add some chips that don't get thrown away. If I don't abandon you, it's too late to love you. Omar Forster stepped back, his eyes still watery, but bright as the moon, casting a clear glow on my heart. I love you too, but I can't. When Omar Forster set off for a race in another city, I was reluctant to hold him, and refused to leave. As a result, he comforted me with one sentence, "I know what you mean, and I miss you all the time." I was teased by his low, magnetic voice, and coughed a few times to calm down. Won't that affect your game? Omar Forster choked up at my words and said helplessly, "No, trust me." Then you go and go back quickly. I wonder if you will be lucky enough to see the trophy. If you want, you can do it, as always. There is it for as long as I want. I glanced at him. My brother is really getting higher and higher. Omar Forster laughed out loud. Wait until I get back. Wait until you get back. I withdrew from his embrace and waved. I didn't bother him too much these days afterward. It wasn't until he finished the game that the two made the only video call in the recent past. Are you coming back? Tomorrow. Tomorrow you can see me. I cheered, and longing for love had long been flooding my heart. Babbling on and on about trivial matters, Omar Forster invited me. Belinda Hurst, can you accompany me to see the moon? I heard the words and walked to the balcony, and he also walked to the window, pointing to the bright moon in the distant sky. I smiled and said, although we are more than 1,000 kilometers apart, we are looking at the same moon. Omar Forster replied silently. The air is quiet and peaceful, and the two of them enjoy the moon in the air. Belinda Hurst, tell you something. What? I looked at the camera. I've lost my mind reading. After a brief period of joy, I felt a sense of loss and asked, then you don't know what I'm thinking anymore? Omar Forster pursed his lips. Maybe you know. I became interested and deliberately asked him, so what are you thinking about now? The boy looked up at the moon and then at me and said, you're thinking of me. In an instant, fireworks from all over the world burst into my heart. Even if he loses his mind-reading skills, that boy is still the person who knows me best. Omar Forster. The first time I met Belinda Hurst was in my mom's office. I was in the corner and saw Belinda Hurst come in and report to my mom. It was close to dinner, and my mom was still talking to Belinda Hurst. Suddenly, I heard a sentence. Mentor, can you hurry up? The sweet and sour tenderloin in the cafeteria is about to be snatched up. I looked up and thought she was really complaining, and I felt quite courageous. As a result, I saw that she had a serious face. There was no impatience on her face, and my mother did not have anything abnormal. Mentor, you're right, Belinda Hurst touts. But I heard her voice. Help me, please, I want to eat. Since then, I have been able to hear her. At noon that day, I remember it very well, because she was obsessed with sweet and sour tenderloin. I became curious about such sweet and greasy food for the first time. Unfortunately, when I was about to ask my aunt to call me, I heard her think, the last one, don't be snatched away. So, I changed the dish and left the last sweet and sour tenderloin for her. After eating, I also glanced at Belinda Hurst, who happened to be in line behind me, and her eyes were full of food, and she didn't notice me. Then I couldn't hear her all the time, and a long period of annoyance was followed by a brief period of curiosity. It's very much affecting my normal life. I don't want to spy on other people's minds, and others don't want their minds to be eavesdropped. And all this, neither she nor I can choose. Later, my heart and hers were miraculously in balance in my body. Love words are like this. Often I don't know what to do, but I go deeper. Her inner world is bright and open, and before I know it, she has taken all my attention. I became the one who knew her best but herself, and I was involved in every aspect of her life. But Belinda Hurst didn't know about it. She never noticed me. How many times have I passed by her? I was just the stranger, the one who had wandered in her heart countless times, but could never step into it. It was a huge surprise to learn that Belinda Hurst had taken a fancy to me. Ostensibly I was picked up by my mother, but in fact I couldn't wait. It's just that I was full of joy. But I heard her say, there are a lot of such words in the comment area, and I followed the trend. Is it hard to take her just to play? I was discouraged. But luckily I had the ability to read minds. When I heard her think, it's so cute, I like it, I was completely relieved. She was happy with me. After that, I kept hiding this secret, but I got along too closely. How could I always tell whether this sentence was what she said or what she thought? So I revealed it several times, but I barely fooled it. Mind reading was my relationship with her, and it gave me the opportunity to get to know her, and get closer to her. Mind reading is also a robbery for me and her, and I am too afraid that she will not accept it and leave me. I can only carry this secret that I love and hate, and hide it carefully. But she found out anyway. She was restless and cranky all day, forcing me to want to reveal it several times, but I didn't dare. Belinda Hurst's reaction was beyond my expectations, and she seemed pleasantly surprised. I pretended to be easy, and scolded her for being a love brain, but in fact I was very nervous. Everyone needs privacy, but Belinda Hurst can't have it anymore, and I pity her, but I'm afraid she'll leave me because of it. But she said, it's a very insecure thing to expose everything you have to another person. But if that person were you, I don't think I would be afraid. I was so moved that I promised, I love you too, but I can't help it. I will live this sentence with my life. The end.